The series begins with a guy named Jay. He's dressed to the nines and looking sharp because he is on his way to a job interview at Taikang, the company of his dreams. Jay has been preparing for this interview for a very long time. While walking, he calls his fiancée Jisoo to tell her he's on his way. Jisoo reassures him, telling him not to be nervous so he can get the job. Jay thanks her, hangs up, and continues walking normally. Suddenly, while crossing the street, a man stops in the middle of the road. A car violently hits the man, sending him flying through the air until he crashes right next to Jay. Jay is absolutely terrified. He rushes over to check on the man, but tragically, the man dies right there in his arms. Traumatized and shaking, Jay walks away. He goes to his interview, but he is deeply shaken by the horrific accident he just witnessed. He sits there trembling, completely unfocused and on the verge of a breakdown. Naturally, the company's HR department isn't impressed and he gets rejected from the interview he had spent years preparing for. From here, my friend, Jay's life completely spirals. Time passes and Jay can't find a stable job. He drowns in massive debt and is forced to work multiple grueling part-time jobs just to survive. He stays in this miserable state for 7 whole years until, finally, he gets a second chance to interview at the exact same company. He goes in for the same position, but this time, the executives don't like his resume. Why? Because over those 7 years, he hasn't developed any new skills or gained any professional experience. Obviously, Jay didn't have the time to improve himself because he was working himself to the bone with odd jobs. As a result, he sits in the interview feeling defeated, unable to answer their questions. However, the CEO of the company, a man named Tae, steps in. He tells Jay that he respects his struggle and the sheer number of jobs he took to survive. He promises to personally review Jay's resume and call him. Now, my friend, focus closely and remember CEO Tae's face because we are going to need him later. Anyway, Jay leaves the interview feeling incredibly happy and hopeful, but sadly, that joy doesn't last long. His friend calls him with devastating news. Han-soo, the guy Jay entrusted all his life savings to for investments, turned out to be a con artist. He took all of Jay's money and fled. Shocked, Jay runs like a madman to Han-soo's house. He bangs on the door, crying and begging him to open up, but there is no answer. Jay breaks down in tears because that was literally his entire life's work. He is now completely broke without a single penny to his name. After crying his eyes out, he walks away and wanders the streets until he ends up at his fiancée Jisoo's house. The moment she sees him, she is heartbroken. Knowing what happened, she tries to help him by handing him an envelope of cash, but Jay feels guilty. He tells her he is only dragging her down, that she deserves someone much better, and hands the money back. He walks away, leaving her shattered. After all this heartbreak, Jay returns to his apartment, only to find his landlord throwing all his furniture out onto the street. He's being evicted for not paying rent. Jay loses his mind, not knowing what to do. He sits outside his apartment door until the sun comes up. At that exact moment, he receives a text message from Taikang. He didn't get the job. Jay finally hits his breaking point and weeps bitterly. He has lost everything. He has nothing left to live for, so he makes a dark decision to end it all. That night, he climbs to the roof of a towering skyscraper. Standing at the edge, he feels no fear of death. To him, death is just a tool to end his pain. Bam! He jumps off the roof and kills himself, but suddenly he wakes up, sitting on a private jet. His face and body are completely different. Shocked and utterly confused, he looks around and sees a mysterious woman sitting across from him. She looks at him and says, "You said you aren't afraid of death? That it's just a tool?" She takes off her sunglasses and her eyes glow with a terrifying red light. The moment Jay looks into her eyes, they are both teleported to another realm. It's a terrifying place, a dark tower standing in the middle of a vast bloody ocean. Jay, back in his original body, asks her where they are. The woman replies that she is death itself and she is going to punish him for mocking her. Shocked, Jay can barely process her words before she grabs him by the throat and throws him off the tower into the water below. The scariest part? The water is swarming with horrific monsters that start eating him alive. Jay screams in agony until he suddenly wakes up back on the plane. Death appears again, dropping a massive bombshell on him. He is going to die 12 times. His soul will be transferred into the bodies of 12 different people who are on the brink of imminent death. If he manages to avoid death and survive in any of these bodies, he gets to live out the rest of that person's life with no issues. Just to be clear, there are 12 people about to die. He will jump from one to the next, trying to save them. If he saves even one, he lives forever as if he never committed suicide. After explaining the rules, Death vanishes. Jay starts searching the plane and realizes it's a private jet belonging to the man he is currently possessing. Suddenly, a glowing orb appears out of nowhere and flies straight into Jay's head. Instantly, he absorbs all the memories and abilities of his new host. He realizes he is now in the body of Park, the second son of Taikang's CEO. Yes, the very company Jay was dying to work for. And CEO Tai, the guy from the interview, is Park's older brother. However, Park was much smarter than his older brother, so their father appointed him as the vice chairman, lining him up to be the next CEO. When Jay realizes all of this, he is overjoyed. If he can save Park's life, he can live forever as a billionaire CEO. He laughs, imagining his luxurious new life, but right in the middle of his daydreaming, the plane's engine suddenly malfunctions and bursts into flames. The plane loses balance, the immense pressure rips the door off, and the entire plane explodes. Jay burns alive and dies. He wakes up in his original body back in the terrifying realm with Death. She informs him that he just lost his first life. He has 11 left. Jay walks over to her and notices 11 bullets sitting on a table. When he asks what they are, she explains that each bullet represents a life. To transfer to the next body, he has to take a bullet right to the head. Terrified, Jay asks about the glowing orb. She explains that the orb transfers the memories and skills of the host. For example, if he transferred into Messi, he'd get all his memories and legendary football skills. Jay is amazed, feeling like he's inside a video game. But then he angrily asks, "Why didn't you tell me any of this before putting me in Park's body? The plane exploded before I could do anything." Death casually replies that she wanted to show him that avoiding death isn't going to be easy and that Park's death was just a warm-up. The rest will be much worse. Jay asks what happens if he fails to save all 11 remaining lives. She points down to a terrifying, blazing volcano and tells him he will burn in it forever. Jay is petrified, crying at the sight of the hellfire. Death reassures him that he can save himself if he just survives one of the next lives. Feeling slightly relieved, Jay opens his mouth to ask another question, but Death doesn't give him the chance. She pulls the trigger and shoots him right in the forehead. Instantly, Jay transfers into a new body. The shock this time, he is inside the body of an extreme sports junkie and he is currently free falling through the sky seconds away from hitting the ground. But the real horror, he isn't wearing a parachute. Jay screams in terror until another skydiver grabs him midair. The glowing orb enters Jay's head and he realizes he is Song, a man obsessed with insane, death-defying stunts. Today's challenge, jumping out of a plane with no parachute and landing perfectly into a net on the ground. The entire world is watching this live because if he succeeds, he wins $3 billion. Hearing that number, Jay goes crazy with motivation. He pushes his helper away, adjusts his body, and uses Song's muscle memory. He dives toward the net at maximum speed with the whole world holding its breath. But the hype turns into a nightmare in a split second. As Jay approaches the net, he fails to position his body correctly. He misses, hits the solid ground, and his head explodes like a watermelon. A brutal, gruesome death. Having failed for the second time, Jay returns to Death. She asks him why he threw himself off that building. He tells her his life was miserable, that he was born into a poor family, struggled his whole life to improve things, and failed completely. Death tells him he needs to feel remorse for his suicide. He yells back, saying regret is pointless. Furious, Death calls him a selfish coward who cares about no one but himself. She pulls out her gun and shoots him in the head again. This time, he wakes up in the body of a high school student. To his shock, the first thing he sees is a school bully named Jin laughing maniacally while watching the skydiving video of Jay's previous brutal death. Furious, Jay is about to attack him, but the glowing orb enters his head. He realizes he is now Kwon. Kwon has a tragic life. His father passed away and his mother works endlessly just to feed him. On top of that, Kwon is physically weak and gets brutally bullied every single day by the psycho Jin and his gang. Feeling deep sympathy for Kwon, Jay goes and sits at his desk. Jin immediately comes over to harass him, but Jay snaps. He grabs a chair, smashes it into Jin, knocks him down, and demands an apology. Jin refuses, and one of his gang members, a heavily built guy named Tae-sung, steps in. Tae-sung effortlessly throws Jay to the floor. Jay tries to fight back, but Tae-sung is incredibly strong and beats Jay to a pulp. After school, Jin and the gang corner Jay and beat him up again, but this time Taesung steps in and tells Jin to stop and leave Jae alone. Jin goes insane, slaps Taesung across the face and humiliates him right in front of Jae. Jae is extremely confused. Taesung is much stronger and could easily crush Jin, yet he does nothing. Don't worry, my friend, we'll find out why soon enough. Jae goes home to Kwon's house. He finds a note from Kwon's mother saying she'll be working late. Reading it, Jae is heartbroken as he remembers his own mother writing him similar notes. He waits for her to get home. When she arrives, she serves him dinner and gives him food off her own plate. Overwhelmed by her pure, motherly love, Jae remembers his real mother, loses control, and breaks down crying while eating. The next day at school, Jae confronts Taesung. He asks him, "Why is Jin the boss when you're clearly stronger?" Taesung reveals that Jin is secretly protected by a powerful older gang leader. If anyone lays a finger on Jin, the whole gang will make their life a living hell. Understanding the situation, Jae hatches a brilliant plan. Later in the cafeteria, Jin comes to bully him again. Jae stands up, grabs a tray of food, and dumps it directly over Jin's head in front of the entire school, then casually walks away. Jin is furious, looking like an absolute fool. Wasting no time, Jin runs to his gang leader friend and tells him everything. The leader rallies his gang and marches to the school to destroy Jae. But when they arrive and see Kwon, a scrawny, weak-looking kid, they are utterly confused. The gang leader slaps Jin, curses him for wasting their time on such a pathetic target, and leaves with his men. Jin goes crazy and tries to attack Jae himself, but Taesung steps in, delivers a massive punch, and knocks Jin to the floor. Taesung beats him mercilessly, realizing the gang has abandoned Jin. From that day on, Jin becomes the weakest loser in school. Taesung beats him up every time he sees him, and nobody wants to be anywhere near Jin. Driven by pure madness, Jin decides to take the ultimate revenge. One day, while Jae is walking down the street, Jin sneaks up behind him and smashes a heavy brick into his head. Jae bleeds and collapses to the ground. Jin mounts him and ruthlessly beats him to death with the brick in a deeply tragic and shocking scene. Jae fails his third attempt and returns to the Dark Realm. Deeply frustrated, he asks Death why she keeps putting him in the bodies of people with such miserable lives. She laughs and says, "The hard part hasn't even started yet." Bomb! She shoots him again. Jae wakes up in a new body, currently tied to a chair and being brutally tortured. Confused and agonizing in pain, he realizes his torturers are demanding to know the location of the girl and the money. Having no idea what they're talking about, Jae stalls for time until the glowing orb finally enters his head, just seconds before a guy tries to smash his skull with a hammer. Jae accesses the memories and realizes his name is Lee. Lee is a highly skilled, heavy-hitting enforcer for a massive criminal syndicate, basically the boss's right-hand man, but Lee fell deeply in love with the boss's daughter, knowing her father physically abused her. To save her, Lee plotted their escape. Not only that, but he also stole 10 billion won from the syndicate. Everything was going perfectly until the gang tracked him down, leading to his current torture session. After absorbing Lee's memories and realizing how lethal this body is, Jae unleashes Lee's combat skills. He effortlessly breaks free from his restraints, dodges their attacks like a ninja, kills the lights, grabs a knife, and slaughters the torturers one by one. After wiping them out, he remembers that Lee hid the 10 billion won in a secret stash in the city. Jae plans to escape, grab the money, and live like a king. He opens the door to escape, only to realize he's in the back of a massive moving truck. Spotting a motorcycle inside the truck, he hops on it and jumps out of the moving vehicle. Lee is a master rider, and Jae uses those skills to outrun the pursuing gang cars. An insane, high-speed shootout ensues on the highway bridge. Jae dodges bullets at maximum speed, causing massive pile-ups and flipping a huge tractor trailer in the process, but he miraculously escapes. He continues his getaway and drives the motorcycle straight into a shopping mall. The gang chases him inside on their own bikes. Using the mall's elevator, Jae rides the motorcycle up to the roof, only to find the gang waiting for him. In a desperate move, he revs the engine and jumps the bike off the roof of the mall, crashing safely into a swimming pool below. He finally shakes them off, changes clothes, and goes to the rendezvous point to meet the boss's daughter. When she sees him, she looks relieved and hugs him. Jae feels reassured, believing she truly loves him. The angel-faced girl asks him, "Where is the 10 billion?" Jae points to a boat and says, "Right over there." The second he turns his head, the girl betrays him, pulling out a gun and shooting him straight in the back of the head to take all the money for herself. Jae dies instantly in a shocking twist. Jae returns to the realm, and Death is laughing hysterically at his stupidity. She mocks him for getting betrayed over the money, but here is the kicker. Jay had actually lied to the girl before she killed him. He is the only one who knows the true location of the 10 billion won. He smirks, planning to grab the cash in his next life. Noticing his smug smile, Death gets annoyed and shoots him in the head. Jay transfers again and wakes up locked inside a solitary confinement prison cell. He panics, screaming, terrified that he might be serving a massive sentence. Eventually, a guard takes him back to the general population block. As soon as he enters his cell, a friendly inmate approaches him. Jay asks when he's getting released, and the guy smiles, saying they are both getting out in 4 days. Jay is thrilled. The inmate then warns him not to mess with the psychopath in their cell block so he doesn't end up back in solitary. Jay gets nervous about this supposed psychopath, but when the psycho walks into the cell, Jay is hit with the shock of a lifetime. The psychopath is none other than Jin, the school bully who murdered him with a brick when he was Kwon. Jay snaps. He slaps Jin so hard he hits the floor, then proceeds to stomp on him mercilessly. While beating him up, the glowing orb enters Jay's head. He realizes he is in the body of a 21-year-old named Choi. Choi was an aspiring boxer whose dreams were crushed by his mother's massive debts. Desperate, a shadowy figure offered him 200 million won to take the fall for a fatal hit and run committed by his boss. Choi agreed, confessed to the police, and was sentenced to 2 years in prison because he was a minor at the time. Now Jay understands why he's here. He also remembers that when Jin arrived at the prison, he lied to the inmates, claiming he was a psychotic serial killer to make them fear him. Jay laughs out loud, walks over to Jin, and slaps him repeatedly. Jin breaks down crying, exposing his true pathetic nature in front of all the inmates, begging Jay to stop. The inmates are stunned. Jay exposes Jin to the whole block, revealing that Jin is just a cowardly bully who murdered a high school student with a rock. Jin is horrified. How could this guy possibly know that? Realizing they'd been lied to, the other inmates gang up on Jin and beat him senseless. The next day in the prison workshop, an inmate suddenly hurls a spinning circular saw blade right at Jay's head. Luckily, Jay's boxer reflexes kick in. He dodges it at the last millisecond, and the blade buries itself into another inmate's head instead. The guards quickly intervene. Soon after, Jay is cornered by a group of inmates who reveal they were hired to assassinate him. Jay realizes the guy who hired him to take the fall is trying to silence him so he doesn't have to pay the 200 million won. Furious, Jay unleashes Choi's elite boxing skills. He dodges their attacks with incredible speed and knocks out every single hitman in seconds, leaving their broken bodies on the floor. Later that night, back in the cell, Jay spots Jin in the bathroom, sharpening a pen to stab him. Jay walks in, disarms him effortlessly, and pushes him to the floor. Jin cries, cursing Jay for making him the prison punching bag. Jay leans in and whispers, "Did it hurt this much when Tai Sung hit you in school?" Jin freezes in absolute terror. Jay plays mind games, telling Jin that Kwon's ghost is standing right behind him. The cowardly Jin is so terrified, he literally wets himself and passes out. 2 days later, it's release day. Jay notices that Jin has completely lost his mind, paranoid and terrified of Kwon's ghost. Jay smirks, feeling Jin got exactly what he deserved. Jay walks out of the prison gates and finds the guy who owed him the 200 million waiting in a car. The guy hands him a briefcase full of cash, but Jay refuses it. He doesn't want the headache, and besides, he already knows where the 10 billion won is stashed. He walks away, leaving the man paranoid that Jay might confess the truth. Jay heads straight to the location where he died as Lee. He rents a small boat, navigates to the secret stash, and uncovers the bag containing 10 billion won in cash and diamonds. He is ecstatic. Feeling exhausted, he takes a nap. While sleeping, he dreams of his mother. He wakes up to his phone ringing. It's Choi's mother. He breaks down, remembering how his own mother called him right before he jumped off the building, and he ignored it. Weeping bitterly, he answers the phone, speaks tenderly to Choi's mother, tells her he's coming home, and hangs up. Wasting no time, he grabs the bag of money. Before going home, he smartly hides the cash in a secure locker at the train station. Afterward, he walks toward Choi's neighborhood. Just as he enters his alleyway, a man sneaks up from behind and plunges a knife deep into Jay's side. Jay falls to the ground, bleeding out, and asks the man who sent him. The man reveals he is the father of the girl killed in the hit and run. He stabbed Choi to avenge his daughter, furious that her killer only got a 2-year sentence. Heartbroken, Jay cries and apologizes, desperately trying to explain that he wasn't the real driver, The father is stunned and conflicted. Suddenly, they hear footsteps approaching and the father flees. The person approaching is Jay's friendly cellmate from prison. It turns out this cellmate is a scumbag working for the boss who set Choi up. The cellmate pulls out a knife and mercilessly stabs Jay in the stomach. Jay bleeds out on the cold pavement and dies. Jay returns to Death furious and in a rush. He demands she shoot him immediately so he can respawn and get his money from the locker. Death laughs a sinister laugh and shoots him. Jay respawns and the absolute shock hits him. He is in the body of a newborn baby. Now he understands why she was laughing. He cries helplessly in his baby body, mourning his lost millions. His crying enrages the mother, who grabs him roughly, tosses him in the car, and screams at him to shut up. When they get home, she literally throws him onto the couch like a football. To make matters worse, his father feeds him spoiled food. Amidst this horrific abuse, the police arrive with a child protective services worker. They received a report of child abuse, noticing bruises on the baby during a hospital visit. The parents are terrified of getting arrested. The father smoothly lies to the cop, mentioning he works in childcare and shows off staged happy family photos. The cop buys the act, apologizes, and prepares to leave. Jay, realizing this is his only chance, screams and cries as loud as he can to alert the cop, but tragically, the cop leaves. The second the door shuts, the mother goes psychotic. She throws Jay on the floor, grabs a pillow, and smothers the baby to death in a deeply disturbing and heartbreaking scene. Jay returns to the dark realm. Still obsessed with the money, he yells at Death to shoot him fast. She obliges. This time Jay gets incredibly lucky. He spawns in a body located right next to the train station where he hid the money. He sprints like a maniac, opens the locker, and successfully retrieves the 10 billion won. He looks in a station mirror and notices he's incredibly handsome. Glancing around, he sees his face on billboard ads. He's a famous male model. The glowing orb enters his head, revealing his name is Gion, a highly popular and beloved figure in the fashion industry. Thrilled with his new life, Jay takes the money and heads to Geon's luxurious penthouse. He is mesmerized by the view, the luxury, and the sheer perfection of his new life. While relaxing, he spots a newspaper headline. The abusive parents from his previous baby life have been arrested. Overjoyed by this justice, he finally relaxes. The next morning, Geon's older brother wakes him up and tells him to come help out at his cafe. Jay agrees, takes a shower, and heads down to work as a barista. Suddenly, the cafe door opens and in walks Jisoo, his ex-fiancée, the girl he abandoned before he killed himself. Jay freezes, staring at her in absolute shock as all his beautiful memories with her flood his mind. He stares in silence. When Jisoo comes to the counter to pick up her order, Jay is so nervous his hands are violently shaking. She notices and he quickly apologizes. Jay asks his brother if she's a regular, and his brother confirms she comes often to write her novels. Jay quickly searches her name online and discovers she has won numerous literary awards. He sees a photo of her holding an award and a cash prize envelope, the exact same envelope she tried to give him to help him out. The guilt crushes him and he watches her from afar until she leaves. The next day, Jay waits for her at the cafe. When she orders, he personally serves her and adds a free slice of cake, telling her he is a huge fan of her writing. Jisoo is touched and thanks him. Jay uses the opportunity to strike up a conversation. He tells her he has a brilliant concept for a novel and proceeds to tell her his entire real story about a man who committed suicide and is forced to jump from body to body. Jisoo is captivated by the plot. She remarks that he describes the protagonist's feelings so vividly as if they were his own. She asks for the protagonist's name. Panicking, Jay lies and says he hasn't picked one yet. He then asks her to sign a copy of her book. As she pulls a pen from her bag to sign it, Jay recognizes the pen. It's the exact gift he bought her before he died. His heart breaks all over again. Jisoo asks him to tell her more about his story later, and Jay happily agrees. From that day on, Jay and Jisoo spend hours talking at the cafe. One night, they talk until late. Jisoo gets up to leave, but it's pouring rain outside. Jay runs after her and hands her a red umbrella. She's surprised but deeply grateful, takes it, and leaves. Jay walks back into the cafe to clean up a broken glass dropped by a customer. While picking up the shards, an ambulance speeds past the window, sirens blaring. Distracted, Jay cuts his hand on the glass. Suddenly, he overhears customers saying a girl who frequents the cafe just got hit by a car down the street. Pure dread washes over Jay. Assuming it's Jisoo, He runs out of the cafe like a madman toward the accident scene. He arrives to see blood on the asphalt and a red umbrella lying on the ground. Terrified, he screams, shoves through the police barricade to see the body, only to see Jisoo standing safely on the sidewalk. He exhales, completely relieved. Jisoo sees him hyperventilating with his hand bleeding and rushes over. As she bandages his hand, she asks why he looks so terrified. Jae covers up, saying he thought it was someone he knew. Jisoo looks down sadly and says she intimately understands that exact feeling of panic because she felt it the day her fiancé died. She bursts into tears. Jae realizes with crushing guilt that he is the source of all her trauma. He tries to comfort her, but she politely excuses herself and walks away in sorrow. The next day, Jisoo visits Jae's memorial urn. Unbeknownst to her, Jae, as Gaeon, is standing right behind her. He listens as Jisoo weeps, blaming herself for his suicide, believing she didn't support him enough. Jae is devastated. After she leaves, he stands in front of his own memorial and cries. Suddenly, a woman approaches him and asks who he is. It's his mother. Jae panics, fights back his tears, says he's just waiting for someone, and rushes out. Standing outside the room, he watches his mother collapse to the floor, wailing in unimaginable grief for her dead son. Jae falls to his knees outside, sobbing uncontrollably. He finally realizes that his suicide didn't just end his pain, it utterly destroyed the lives of the two women who loved him most. After gathering himself, Jae writes a letter to his mother. He pretends to be a friend of her late son, claiming Jae made a fortune in trading before he died. He stuffs the letter into the bag, holding the 10 billion won. The next day, he sneaks into his mother's house while she's at work, leaves the massive bag of cash for her, and returns to the cafe. Jisoo arrives, and Jae asks her to go for a walk. As they stroll, Jae can't hold it in anymore. He begins telling her the story, but this time he reveals intimate, deeply personal secrets and habits that only the real Jae and Jisoo knew, weeping as he speaks. Jisoo breaks down crying, asking how he could possibly know these things. He looks at her and says, "Because the story is real. I am Jae." Jisoo is paralyzed with shock, but in that exact split second, a speeding car violently swerves off the road and crashes directly into them. It's a horrific, brutal impact. The most shocking part, the driver is CEO Tae. As Jae lies dying on the pavement, pieces of his past lives click together. He realizes Tae has been the mastermind behind almost all his deaths. Tae orchestrated the hit on Lee. Tae was the boss who committed the hit and run and framed Choi. And now, Tae has murdered Jisoo. Seeing Jae still breathing, Tae steps out of the car, grabs Jae by the throat, and strangles him to death. Jae returns to the dark realm, utterly destroyed and sobbing over Jisoo's murder. Blinded by absolute rage, he grabs Death's gun and bashes her in the head with it. Jae tries to shoot himself in the head to quickly spawn into a new body and take revenge on Tae, but the gun is empty. Death stands up, completely unfazed by the blow to the head, and calmly tells him that physical attacks are useless against her. Jae screams at her, demanding to know why she let Jisoo die. Death morphs into Jisoo's exact form and coldly tells him it was her destiny. She was meant to die in that exact spot, even if you hadn't been there. Jae is stunned. He demands she shoot him so he can hunt down Tae. Death strictly warns him, "If you murder someone, I will instantly pull you out of the body. You will forfeit the game and you will be cast into hell." Jae doesn't care. He tosses her the gun. Death doesn't even use the gun. She telekinetically launches a bullet from the floor straight into Jae's forehead with the speed of a gunshot. Jae spawns into his next body. He immediately notices his hands are covered in blood. Panicking, he washes his hands, walks out of the bathroom, and flips on the lights. He is standing in a morbid art studio bathed in blood-red lighting, surrounded by disturbing, dark paintings drawn with literal human blood. Terrified, he waits until the glowing orb hits his head. He discovers he is in the body of Jung. Jung was an aspiring painter whose work was constantly rejected. One day while walking home, a man committed suicide, jumping off a building and landing on a car, splashing blood everywhere. Jung walked up to the dying man, touched his blood, and felt inspired. He painted the man's dying expression using the victim's own blood. Shockingly, the painting became a massive hit and sold for a fortune. This twisted success turned Jung into a psychotic serial killer. He kidnaps people, tortures them, and paints their final agonizing expressions using their blood. This monster has murdered 15 innocent people, and Jae is now inside his body. Jae collapses to the floor, almost passing out from horror, but he quickly gathers himself. He realizes he can use the body of this demonic serial killer to hunt down the demon Tae. First, Jae goes straight to the scene where he and Jisoo were murdered. He remembers that as he was dying, he heard Tae order his assistant to take the fall for the crash because Tae was high on drugs. Tae promised the assistant massive wealth and a CEO position. The assistant agreed, took the dashcam memory card proving Tae was driving, threw it into a nearby storm drain, and called the cops. Knowing exactly where it is, Jae opens the drain and retrieves the memory card, along with Jisoo's pen that Tae had kicked away. As Jae walks away, his nose starts bleeding heavily and he passes out. He wakes up in a hospital. The doctor informs him that he has an inoperable brain tumor and only has 1 month to live. The psychotic Jung's body just laughs it off and Jae leaves. As he walks out, his secretary calls, informing him that CEO Tae is currently at Jung's art gallery and wants to buy a painting. Overjoyed by this perfect setup, Jae rushes to the gallery to finally end Tae. Jae arrives and finds Tae admiring a piece. He introduces himself as Jung. Tae asks about the meaning behind the artwork. Jae casually drops a bomb. It was painted using the blood of 5 different people. You and I are the same. We are both psychopaths who enjoy killing. Tae is visibly rattled. Jae quickly laughs it off, claiming it was just a dark joke. Relieved, Tae prepares to leave. Jae reaches into his pocket, gripping a scalpel, ready to slice Tae's throat. But he remembers death's warning. If he kills, he goes to hell. He releases the scalpel and instead offers to personally deliver the painting to Tae's mansion. Tae agrees and drives off. Tae speeds away like a maniac, ignoring speed cameras. A police car starts chasing him, but Tae refuses to pull over, blowing past the checkpoint until he gets stuck in traffic. The cops catch up. Officer Hoon steps out, demands Tae's ID, and writes him a ticket. Furious, Tae shoves the cop and demands his name. Hoon stands his ground. Tae pulls out his phone and directly calls the chief prosecutor. Hoon's cowardly partner steps out of the cruiser and begs Hoon to back down, warning him that this is the untouchable CEO of Taekang. But Hoon refuses. Tae hands Hoon the phone and the chief prosecutor viciously berates Hoon, threatening to fire him unless he apologizes. Humiliated, Hoon hands the phone back and apologizes, but Tae takes it a step further, slapping Hoon across the face, utterly degrading him in front of his cowardly partner, who does absolutely nothing to help. My friend, remember this cowardly cop because he is very important. Tae smirks, gets in his car, and drives home. When Tae arrives at his mansion, Jae is waiting by the gate. Tae is confused and demands to know why he is there. Jae aggressively props his foot on Tae's luxury car. Enraged, Tae threatens him, saying there are no cameras around and he could easily kill him. Jae smiles and says, I know. Tae loses his temper, throws a punch, and knocks Jae to the ground. Jae gets back up, spits on him, and taunts him further. Tae lunges, but Jae easily dodges his weak attacks, takes him down with a leg sweep, and drops him hard. Utterly unhinged, Tae runs to his car and pulls out a shotgun. Jae tries to run, but Tae shoots him in the back, dropping him. Tae walks over to finish the job, but Jae suddenly springs up, shoves Tae away, jumps into Tae's car, and tries to run him over. Tae dives out of the way, dropping the shotgun. Jae steps out of the car, picks up the gun, and reveals he is wearing a bulletproof vest. He then knocks Tae unconscious with the butt of the rifle. Jae ties Tae up, throws him in the trunk, and drives him to Jung's horrific art studio. Jae wakes Tae up and casually informs him that he will be victim number 16. He graphically details exactly how he is going to torture him. Tae is shaking in absolute terror. Jae straps Tae to the killing bed, but just as he is about to begin, the brain tumor strikes. Jae collapses, passing out cold on the floor. Tae seizes the opportunity. He breaks free from his restraints and straps the unconscious Jae to the bed instead. When Jae wakes up, he is horrified to find himself bound, with Tae standing over him holding a revving chainsaw. Tae smiles and says, You told me about your 15 murders. Let me tell you about mine. My first kill was an accident. He reveals he was the driver who killed the man in front of Jae before his very first interview. The thrill of that kill turned Tae into a serial killer. Tae plunges the roaring chainsaw into Jae's legs. Jae screams in agonizing pain as blood sprays everywhere, and Tae slowly tortures him to death. Jae returns to the dark realm, but shockingly, he is laughing maniacally. Death is confused until she realizes Jae planned this entire thing. Jae had hidden security cameras all over the studio, recording his own gruesome murder in pristine audio and video. Before Jae died in Jung's body, the footage also captured Tae confessing to murdering his own brother, park by sabotaging his plane. Back in the realm, Death shoots Jay, transferring him to his next life. He spawns into the body of the cowardly cop from the traffic stop. Jay is currently chasing a criminal down an alley. The criminal pulls a knife, and Jay, in the coward's body, tries to run away. Suddenly, Officer Hoon tackles the suspect and makes the arrest. Hoon furiously scolds Jay for being a coward and making the department look bad. As Hoon walks away, the orb enters Jay's head. He learns his name is Hyung. Hyung's father was a heroic cop who died in the line of duty. To honor him, Hyung became a cop too, but his mother was terrified he would die like his father, so Hyung swore he would never put himself in danger. That promise turned him into a pathetic coward who avoided any real police work. After his mother died, the cowardice remained. Right now, Jay walks out of the alley and spots a man violently beating someone in the street. To his shock, the attacker is his scumbag cellmate from prison, the guy who murdered him when he was Choi. Furious, Jay approaches him and says, "Hey, it's me, Choi." The idiot responds, "Impossible. I killed Choi with my own hands." He literally confesses to murder in the middle of a crowded street with everyone recording on their phones. Realizing his mistake, the thug attacks Jay. But Jay uses his elite fighting skills to effortlessly flip the thug onto the concrete and arrest him. The crowd cheers, and Hoon is completely mind-blown. How did the coward Hyung suddenly turn into John Wick? The video goes viral, and the entire precinct is in awe. Meanwhile, Jay grabs Hoon and drives them straight to Jung the serial killer's studio. Jay opens the secret door to the murder room and boots up the security system. He shows Hoon the footage of Jung's 15 murders. Hoon is horrified and immediately calls CSI. Before they arrive, Jay secretly copies all the footage of Tai's confession and murder onto a flash drive and deletes it from the main computer. Hoon sees him do this, but stays quiet, assuming Jay is hiding evidence to protect the powerful CEO. CSI arrives. Jay tells them to spray the luminol chemical on the paintings, dropping the bombshell that they are painted with human blood. They turn off the lights, and the entire room glows blue. The press swarms the studio, and Hyung becomes a national hero overnight for solving the 15-body serial killer case and arresting Choi's murderer. Tae sees the news and panics, realizing this super cop might know about him. He immediately orders his gang to assassinate Hyung. Meanwhile, Jay meets with a famous TV journalist and hands over the flash drive containing Tae's confession. He tells the journalist to broadcast it nationwide, knowing that if he handed it to the corrupt police, they would just destroy it. The journalist agrees. Jay returns to the precinct and explains his plan to Hoon, proving he isn't corrupt. As they are talking, Jay sees his own mother walk into the police station. Terrified, he asks Hoon why she's there. Hoon explains that she brought in a bag containing 10 billion won. The security cameras caught the man who dropped it off, and they found out he died shortly after. She was terrified and surrendered the money. Jay approaches her, fighting back tears. He notices her shoelace is untied and kneels to tie it. She tells him it's the very first gift her son ever bought her, and she wears them to feel close to him. Jay's heart shatters. He asks her why she didn't keep the money. She replies, "Because I don't want to feel like I'm taking blood money as compensation for my son's death, which is my fault." She walks away, leaving Jay emotionally devastated. The next day, Jay visits her house, leaves a warm meal at her door, and watches from afar as she takes it inside. As he walks away, an assassin from Tae's gang ambushes him with a knife. But Jay easily blocks the attack, disarms the thug, and arrests him. Back at the station, the corrupt police chief tips off Tae that the broadcast is airing tonight. Tae thanks him, then calls his gang leader to confirm the hit on Hyung. But Jay answers the gang leader's phone. Jay taunts Tae, telling him he has his men in custody, and invites Tae to the station. Tae arrives at the precinct and tries to bribe Jay with money and power. Jay laughs and says, "Get ready, because I'm arresting you in 30 minutes when the broadcast airs." Tae threatens his life, but Jay just smiles and walks away to turn on the TV. But the broadcast is a complete disaster. The news shows Tae walking freely out of a press conference, publicly confessing to killing Jong. He spins a masterful lie, claiming Jong kidnapped him and that he killed the serial killer in self-defense, effectively making himself look like a hero who ended a monster's reign of terror. The public rallies behind him, and the police drop all charges. Tae walks away completely untouchable. Tae boards his private jet to leave the country. As he settles in, he gets a call from the corrupt police chief, who says they successfully framed and arrested Hyung. Tae smiles, saying he will return to kill Hyung himself. Tae goes to sleep. Suddenly, severe turbulence shakes the plane violently. He wakes up and finds a text from Jay containing a list of every single person Tai has ever murdered. Tay runs into the cockpit, only to find it completely empty. The pilot has vanished. Another text from Jay arrives. The plane will explode in 30 seconds. Panicking, Tay frantically searches for a parachute. But just like with his brother Park, the engine catches fire. The cabin loses pressure, the door rips open, and Tay is sucked out into the sky right before the plane explodes. Tay manages to put on the parachute midair and safely lands on a deserted highway. He survives, but seconds later, a car speeds out of nowhere and violently hits him, launching him onto the asphalt. The driver steps out, and it's Jay. Tay is horrified and asks how he is there. My friend, this is where it all comes together. Jay knew Tay would try to spin the murder as self-defense, so using the memories of Lee, the gangster, Jay infiltrated Tay's gang headquarters and stole a hard drive containing all of Tay's criminal secrets, including an audio recording of Tay ordering the hit on his own brother. Jay sent that tape to the news station alongside the video. As we speak, the entire country is listening to Tay's true crimes, and his empire is crumbling. Furthermore, Jay used the memories of Song, the extreme skydiver, to plant the bomb on Tay's plane and safely parachute out beforehand. Jay orchestrated the fake arrest phone call to lure Tay onto the doomed flight. Now, standing over the broken CEO, Jay prepares to end him. He wraps his hands around Tay's throat, ready to choke the life out of him. But suddenly, death appears behind him, preparing to drag his soul to hell for committing murder. As Jay hesitates, Jisoo's pen falls out of his pocket. Staring at the pen, he realizes he doesn't want to become a monster like Tay. He lets go of Tay's throat and walks away. Enraged, Tay gets up to attack Jay from behind, but a massive gust of wind catches Tay's deployed parachute, dragging him violently across the highway and slamming him directly into the path of a speeding semi-truck. Bam! The next day, the entire country turns against Tay and his corrupt empire. His father, disgraced, resigns from Taikang. Tay survives the truck impact, but both of his legs are amputated. He is left to rot in a hospital bed, a helpless, broken man facing a lifetime in prison. Jay successfully achieved his revenge without killing anyone, keeping himself in the game. He continues living his life as the hero cop, Hyung. He partners with Hoon, taking down criminals. During a shootout, Hoon takes a bullet to save Jay. Jay visits Hoon in the hospital, where he sees Hoon's wife and daughter crying, terrified of losing him. Jay buys the daughter a meal and promises her that he will protect her father and never let him get hurt again. Looking at Hoon's loving family, Jay feels a profound sense of regret, realizing he could have had a family like this if he hadn't committed suicide. Months later, Hoon recovers and he and Jay go on a raid to take down a drug cartel. They corner a drug lord on a rooftop. In a desperate move, the drug lord pulls a gun, shooting Hoon in the leg and Jay in the arm. Remembering his promise to Hoon's daughter, Jay sacrifices himself. He tackles the drug lord off the edge of the roof. The drug lord empties his magazine into Jay's chest midair and they both crash to the ground. Jay dies a hero, saving his partner. Jay returns to the realm. Death is annoyed that he practically committed suicide again by sacrificing himself. Jay defends his actions, saying he did it to save Hoon's life. Death scoffs and says, "What life? Do you even have a life of your own?" Jay is left speechless. Death shoots him. He respawns in the body of a homeless man. Wandering the streets, he sees the news broadcasting the tragic death of the heroic officer Hyung. Jay decides to attend his own funeral. He sees hundreds of people honoring him. He spots Hoon's daughter crying in front of his portrait, thanking him for keeping his promise. Jay tries to wave at her, but she gets scared of his dirty, homeless appearance. Heartbroken, Jay is then kicked out of the funeral hall for smelling bad. As he walks down the steps outside, he sees Hoon sobbing uncontrollably, blaming himself for his partner's death. Jay approaches him and tries to comfort him, saying Hyung died happy and it wasn't his fault. Hoon furiously pins Jay against the wall, screaming, "Who are you to say that?" Jay cries, remembering Death's words. He tells Hoon, "I don't know." He truly doesn't know who he is anymore, Jay, Lee, Hyung, or Choi. Broken and exhausted, Jay decides he is done with this game. He sees the glowing orb containing the homeless man's memories flying toward him. Refusing to accept it, Jay runs away. But as he runs, he trips, falls down a massive flight of concrete stairs, cracks his skull open, and dies instantly. He returns to Death, furious, shouting that he is done playing her sick game and will immediately kill himself in the next 2 lives just to get it over with. Death smiles a chilling smile and shoots him. He spawns into the body of an office worker. True to his word, he blindly sprints into oncoming traffic. A car hits him, throwing him onto the sidewalk. The massive twist: the man Jay just possessed is the exact same man who was killed by Tay's car right in front of Jay before his very first job interview. Death forced him to experience the exact accident that ruined his own life. Jay dies and returns to the realm. Death tells him, "Prepare for the final round, your last chance." Jay spits back that he doesn't care and will kill himself the second he spawns. Death smirks and says, "I highly doubt you'll be able to kill yourself this time." Bam. She shoots him. Jay spawns into the body of his own mother. He is paralyzed with absolute shock, realizing he can never kill himself in this body. In the midst of his shock, the glowing orb enters his head. Jay experiences his mother's entire life. He feels her crushing grief when his father died. He feels her exhaustion as she worked grueling, humiliating jobs just to put food on the table for him. He was the only reason she stayed alive. And when he grew up, instead of making it all worth it, he threw himself off a building. Jay experiences the exact moment she found out he was dead. He feels her soul shatter. He sees through her eyes as she stares at his lifeless corpse, screaming and begging him not to leave her alone. He realizes his suicide didn't end his pain. It merely transferred it to his mother and Jisoo, multiplying it 1,000 times over. He finally understands why Death called him a selfish coward. Weeping in profound regret, Jay resolves to live out the rest of his mother's life to honor her sacrifice and endure the pain he caused her. He goes to her grueling job and works tirelessly. Every single day, his regret deepens, wishing he had never jumped. 32 years pass. Jay lives an entire lifetime trapped inside his mother's body. Finally, at an old age, his mother's body gives out, and she dies a peaceful, natural death. Jay returns to the Dark Realm for the very last time. He falls to his knees, weeping, begging Death for just one more chance to go back to his original body before he jumped. Death asks him why. Heartbroken, Jay cries, "I just want to hug my mother one last time." Death looks at him and says, "You won the game. You survived an entire lifetime." She pulls one final bullet from her pocket, loads it into the gun, and tells him, "If you shoot yourself with this, you will return to your own timeline moments before you jumped." Overjoyed, Jay takes the gun, points it at his head, and pulls the trigger. He spawns back on top of the towering skyscraper, standing on the edge, the cold wind hitting his face, but this time he doesn't jump. His phone rings. It's his mother. He answers it, stepping back from the ledge. Jay finally gets a second chance to live his life. He realizes that while his life wasn't perfect, it was a gift, and he can find happiness with his mother and Jisoo. The series ends on a powerful message. Suicide is never the answer, because the person who commits suicide doesn't just end their own life. They destroy the lives of everyone who loves them. So remember this, my friend, never say it's too late, never think that this is the end, always believe in God, and always make sure that any problems you're in right now, you can solve even if it is unsolvable. So please think twice before you do something fool, and always believe a little bit more. And that's it, my friend. Peace.